We've got something a little different for you today. Many of you probably don't know that friend of the show, David Sirota, teamed up with The Big Short and Vice director Adam McKay to come up with the story behind the new movie Don't Look Up, a dark comedy that imagines how the DC machine would handle the news of a planet-killer comet headed directly for Earth. Here's the trailer.
You are here now. You are here now. You are here now. Your breathing is stressing me out.
This will affect the entire planet.
I know, but it's like so stressful.
Can I get one more ice water?
And I'll get 2 more glasses of white wine. And I don't need the judgy face. There's a comet headed directly towards Earth.
Do you know how many the world is ending meetings we've had over the last 2 years?
Drought, famine. Hole in the ozone is so boring.
We already know he's a man of many talents. David Sirota is also founder of the Daily Poster, editor-at-large at Jacobin, and former senior advisor to the Bernie Sanders campaign. David joins us now to tell us more about the film. Glad to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So how did this come about? How did you become a Hollywood celebrity?
Well, I've known Adam McKay for many, many years, and after his movie Vice came out, we were talking, and I basically said, "Hey, man, you got to do a climate movie. You got to use your superpowers of humor and writing to make a climate movie, but it can't be like a Mad Max post-apocalyptic kind of movie. It's got to be something a little different." And he said, "Yeah, I know. I've been trying to figure out how to make it work, and I've been coming up with drafts." And we kept talking, and at one point, I said, I was exasperated about some story, and I said, it really does feel like a meteor is headed towards Earth, and nobody seems to really care. And he said, "Wait a minute, maybe that's the movie." And we started spitballing ideas, and he got really into it. He wrote an amazing script, and he kept saying, "Hey, this movie's going to happen. We got Leonardo DiCaprio, we got Jen Lawrence," and I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure." And he said, "No, we got Meryl Streep." I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure." And then all of a sudden, he was like, "Actually, the movie is literally being made." And I was as surprised as anyone that he was able to get this kind of movie into get so many celebrities and get it onto such a huge platform.
I'm not really surprised that there are so many celebrities wanting to be involved in some movie that, that kind of sounds the alarm on sort of, in a way, climate change and a disaster. What I am surprised about is how many big names were able to be put into this film. I mean, this is a star-studded film, which is very impressive. And I can just imagine how Washington would handle the news that there was a planet-killing comet coming to Earth. I don't even want to think about it.
It's terrifyingly real. I mean, that's the thing, is that, remember, we came up with this as kind of as a climate allegory, but then the pandemic hit. And it sort of had an application to the way we process science in the pandemic. And what you really, I think people will experience in this movie is you'll realize that whatever the crisis is on your mind, that there are so many metaphors in this movie for that. And the deeper question this movie asks is, can we as a society anymore process verifiable facts in a constructive way to come up with policies to fix real problems? Or have we so frivolized our society? Are we so immersed in a culture and partisan war that facts just become cannon fodder in a culture war? In other words, if a scientist tells us this or that crisis is imminent, here's how to fix it, can we process that information constructively, or does that information just become another way for us to fight with one another?
How absurdist is this film? Is it like, are there people saying, well, I'm not pro Meteor, but I'm definitely anti Meteor. At least my political enemies will also die in a fiery chasm.
No, I mean, actually, to be honest, I mean, there are some absurdist parts of it, but I think that some of the reaction that we've heard is this is so close to reality. It's one click from reality that it's freaky, right? That's the part of this movie that's free. It's almost easier if you made it completely and totally absurd. But this movie, I think, is like one click from reality, which really does underscore the idea that if something like this were happening, this is probably how we would react. And I would argue that, granted, climate change, as an example, is a somewhat longer time frame than a 6 month till an asteroid hits the Earth. But I would argue that this movie does represent how we kind of deal with it. That climate change once in a while comes on our national news and then it kind of goes away, even though it quite literally threatens the survival of the human species.
And one of my favorite parts is how the president, Meryl Streep, doesn't want to deal with it at first because midterms are coming. It's really bad timing for a meteor hitting the planet. But then she gets caught up in a massive sex scandal, and so needs something to distract from the sex scandal. And what better than an apocalypse? Were you involved in the kind of midterm element of the script writing? How'd that come about?
So Adam and I were spitballing more and more ridiculous things that would happen. I mean, at one point I said, at a certain point, maybe let's have there's a government shutdown that will prevent NASA from even trying to deal with this because we have to deal with the partisan wars in the Congress and the government shuts in. So we were coming up with all sorts of these ideas. And obviously the idea of the midterms and political calculations and how that affects policies that go way beyond an election, we know that happens all the time. And I hope that the takeaway from this movie is not just to laugh at it. I hope this movie is seen not necessarily as prophecy or destiny, but it is seen as a cautionary tale. There's a key moment in the movie, I'm not going to give it away, where one of the characters says, we can stop this. We have the ability with our existing technology to stop this if we just focus. And my hope is that people walk out of this movie and don't say, I'm really depressed, I'm really sad, or that was just only just sort of fun, but they walk out saying, actually, we can fix these problems if we deal with the underlying problem, that we need to take the facts and the science seriously.
Did you draw any inspiration from, there's a great Twitter account, the Sweet Meteor of Death, which is if a meteor is running for president, who could be against the meteor that offers us release from the horrors of daily existence of the latest drama on Twitter? The pinned tweet,
well, I will tell
you
you
can't trust the Twitter account of a perennially unsuccessful extinction level asteroid, then I just feel sorry for you.
Well, I will tell you, there is a lot of social media in this movie, a lot about how social media shapes how we think, what we think. And by the way, how basic facts just become fodder for fighting with each other on social media, right? I mean, that's a huge part of the way we illustrate the reaction to the meteor is media organizations judging how cliquey the stories are about the incoming meteor. Like, is a media organization interested or not interested in the meteor story because they're judging by how much Twitter response it's getting? And think about and to be quite clear, we know that happens on major television networks. Oh, climate change, quote, doesn't rate. I mean, we've heard people say that, right? But climate change is one of the meteors headed towards Earth.
Right. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. The movie comes out, I guess there's a limited release now in some theaters, but it's out December 24th on Netflix. Fantastic work. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And we will have more Rising right after this.